Good evening, my bar rats. It is Tuesday, the 25th of February, 2025. This is Rickcast, and I'm so happy that you guys are joining me tonight in this crazy weather pattern that we're having here in Texas. The fact of the matter is that it's hot, it's cold, and I don't know about you. If you live in the Southeast or in Texas, this time of year is always pretty rough. Like my allergies feel like I'm getting beat in the face by Mike Tyson on a regular basis. But I hope you're doing better than I am. I have lots of medicine, so hopefully it'll kick in soon. But we got a bunch of stories for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, not to be outdone. We've got some interesting hot takes. There's no update in Pope Watch. He rested peacefully and he seems to be doing well. So it's great for the Holy Father. Hopefully he can continue to rest well and everything with that, right? We've talked about it extensively. No news on Pope Francis. He seems to be resting at this time. So that's good news. No news is good news, right? As they say. Yeah, we have this Trump and the gold card thing. We have that as a hot take. We're going to talk about that because that is plenty interesting. We also have an IED that was found on in a Texas border town, and talking about the escalating violence that will take place, unfortunately, because you can't get rid of an infection without some pain in the process. And the cartels are absolutely an infection at this point, if you want to look at them in that manner. We also have our four main topics. Dan Crenshaw wants to harm Tucker Carlson. The iPhone is apparently racist, as far as every time you type in the word Trump, it just goes to racist, or when you say racist, it goes to Trump. Either way, it's kind of messed up. It's more of the little pushback that we will be seeing in that regard, unfortunately. We also have members of Congress are getting really not upset, but impatient with Pam Bondi because the Epstein list, the JFK files, all those things are not being released, to the surprise of no one. Remember when Chunky Glenn Beck said 10 days, the Epstein files will be released in 10 days. And we were all like, yeah, maybe it would, probably won't be. They were just setting themselves up for failure on that. And then finally, Kathleen Kennedy, for the fifth year in a row, is leaving and stepping down from her role at Lucasfilm. And it'll be interesting. And you know, you have Lester Holt leaving, you have Joy Reid being fired, you have her stepping down. All of these pillars of diversity, equity, inclusion are kind of being escorted out or kind of running for the door as DEI is being pushed back against, as the tide is turning and public sentiment is turning against these things. So it's interesting to see the rats that are jumping off the ship first. And any of your comments on X or on Rumble or Facebook or Twitter, let me know. Hit me up on any of those. It makes the show so much better when you guys are involved. So yeah, let's get right to it, ladies and gentlemen. I will agree. The wording on the articles are always awful. They are full of word salad and everything like that. But the worst thing is, for the first couple of days, they always started off with, the Pope passed peacefully last night and then woke up and had breakfast. And it's like, come on, man, what are you doing? Everybody's heart drops when these, I don't know why they had to use the phrase passed peacefully. And then they were like, oh yeah, and then he woke up and had breakfast. It was fine. You couldn't just not do it that way. Could you not be so difficult in that regard? But they're going to do what they're going to do. Let's get to our first story. Let's talk about what's going on here in the great state of Texas. And this is not something that should have been, it's not a shock considering who we are dealing with. First story of the day, an IED has killed a U.S. citizen Texas rancher near the Mexican border town in Brownsville, Texas. The news comes as border agents have been warned that the cartels are placing IEDs, improvised explosive devices, in the area. This is Sid Miller, the Department of Agriculture, the commissioner, released this statement today. A tragic and alarming incident occurred near Brownsville, Texas, where a U.S. citizen and Texas rancher was killed by an improvised explosive device. This shocking act of violence highlights the growing threat posed by cartel activity along our southern border. I urge all Texas farmers, ranchers, and agricultural workers who travel to Mexico or operate near the border to exercise extreme caution. The lower Rio Grande Valley is a crucial part of the Texas agriculture, and the safety of our agricultural community is of the utmost importance. We cannot overlook the rising violence and threats, not only lives, but also the security of our farms, ranches, and rural communities. Sid encourages everyone in the agricultural industry to stay vigilant, remain aware of their surroundings, and report any suspicious activity to law enforcement. Additionally, you can avoid dirt roads in remote areas, refrain from touching unfamiliar objects that could be explosive devices, limit travel to daylight hours, stay on main roads, and avoid cartel-controlled regions. Now, this whole sentence is really it shows how infested the cartels already are in these United States, more beyond anybody's recognition. And the fact that there are cartel-controlled areas that you would have to avoid is something that is also pretty stunning to a lot of people. But if you don't live in Texas, then you don't really understand that. Our agricultural family is the backbone of Texas, and we must do everything we can to protect it. So what, going forward, the fact of the matter is, this is going to be something that we will see on the border states, especially as the U.S. ups the ante, if you will, as far as actions against the cartel. So it is going to be something interesting. And I don't want to be macabre when I say this, but this will not be the last time we see an announcement like this coming from Sid Miller, the agricultural commissioner here in Texas. This is Rick Cass. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell to continue and help this show grow. As we go through to our next topic of the night. Let's see here. Whoop. I don't have it up. And where is it? I'm sorry. I know. Let's see here. Let's get that window up. Here's the headline for you. Trump announces gold card visa program costing $5 million. Let him explain it to you.
Selling a gold card. You have a green card. This is a gold card. We're going to be putting a price on that card of about $5 million, and that's going to give you green card privileges plus. It's going to be a route to citizenship, and wealthy people will be coming into our country by buying this card. They'll be wealthy, and they'll be successful, and they'll be spending a lot of money and paying a lot of taxes and employing a lot of people. And we think it's going to be extremely successful. Never been done before, anything like this, but it's something that we're going to be putting out over the next, would you say 2 weeks out? Do you want to say a couple of words about it?
Sure. Mr. President, are there any requirements for that gold card? Do you have to invest a certain amount of money in this country in order to qualify for that gold card?
Yeah, exactly.
So the EB-5 program was really, you lend some money, but it was full of nonsense, make-believe, and fraud, and it was a way to get a green card that was low priced. So the president said, rather than having this sort of ridiculous EB-5 program, we're going to end the EB-5 program. We're going to replace it with the Trump Gold Card, which is really a green card gold. So they'll be able to pay $5 million to the U.S. government. They'll have to go through vetting, of course. We're going to make sure they're wonderful, world-class global citizens. They can come to America. The president can give them a green card, and they can invest in America, and we can use that money to reduce our deficit. Why do we give out lotteries of green cards? Why do we give out EB-5 for green cards? The President of the United States understands that the right answer is, why don't we eliminate the deficit of the United States of America instead?
And how
the
many
gold card, the gold card, well, millions, but the gold card will bring in with it people that create jobs, very high-level people. I think companies will pay to get people in. For instance, you today graduate from the Wharton School of Finance or Harvard or Stanford or any college, and nobody knows if you can even go to work for a company. So Apple and all these companies that want to get people to be working for them will be able to buy a card, and for the people that are number one in their class at top schools, I see that as one of the things. But generally speaking, it'll be people with money and people that create jobs, and they won't have to pay any tax on income outside of the United States, which they're not paying right now. They're not citizens, but they'll have to pay if they create jobs in the United States. They'll pay full taxes like everybody else. So you're getting big taxpayers, big job producers, and we'll be able to sell maybe 1 million of these cards, maybe more than that. And if you add up the numbers, they're pretty good. As an example, 1 million cards would be worth $5 trillion. $5 trillion.
Wow.
And if you sell 10 million of the cards, that's a total of $50 trillion. Well, we have 35 trillion in debt. That'd be nice. So we'll see. But it could be great. Maybe it will be fantastic. We have it all worked out from the legal standpoint. It's totally legal to do. Hasn't been done before. It's been done in many different forms. We give them away. Why should we give them away? We shouldn't give them away. And I think it's something very exciting. I think it's potentially just something that we're all very excited about. So it's a gold card. It's somewhat like a green card, but at a higher level of sophistication. It's a road to citizenship for people. And essentially people of wealth or people of great talent, where people of wealth pay for those people of talent to get in. Meaning companies will pay for people to get in and to have long-term status in the country. And I think it's something we're very, very happy about. Would you have anything to say about that?
Well, many other countries, by the way, do this, including, of course, your 51st state does that.
And the money's earmarked for deficit reduction?
It may be earmarked for deficit, but it actually could be more money than that. I mean, if you did 10 million, you'd have $15 trillion left over. But generally, it's going to be paid down debt. Yes.
Do you need Congress for this? Do you think you need them to pass a law?
No, we don't need Congress. No, because we're not doing citizenship. We're doing the card.
I see.
It's a path to citizenship, a very strong path to citizenship. But we're not doing the citizenship. For that, I'd have to get Congress.
All right, so that is the idea of giving gold cards to different groups. Having some issues here on X right now, folks, as we're trying to address it. But the fact of the matter is, we're looking at people coming into this union with, I should probably turn that off, right? Pretty much given free reign. So obviously the idea of letting people in, I'm not a big fan of immigration. I'd like a moratorium on it completely. So Trump is looking at this way, that the announcement came as other immigration routes expanded during the Biden regime are also being curtailed, particularly for those from Central and Southern America. Trump has advocated for legal immigration, particularly work-based visas. Which he said will help bring in money and jobs into the country. President said current investment visa would be scrapped in favor of this gold card. Essentially, what he's trying to do is a green card plus for global citizens. This is going to make his base. Yeah, I'd like a 10-year freeze on immigration as well. I'd really like to just kind of stop all of that and kind of address what we're doing as of right now. And good news is we fixed it. My producer, she's amazing. And so the whole thing is not going to go over well. He's trying to sell it as, hey, these people got to pay if they want to come here. It's a pay for play scheme. Instead of just kind of being given a visa to come in and hang out with us, now they have to pay and they have to invest in the union or wherever they are and help build jobs. On one hand, that's definitely a Trump mindset. It really does strike me as a Trump mindset type of thing. Like, hey, if people want to come here, they got to pay for it. Where a lot of people within the base are like, nope, I don't like this idea. I don't like the gold card idea. I like the part where we don't have to worry about people coming in. Why don't we focus on people in the union instead of giving $5 million gold cards, Trump gold cards, to global citizens? That's the last thing. If you hear me snapping, it's one of those like fidget toys. Sorry. Why do we have to give anything to global citizens? Why do we have to be a partner in the global, community, right? The global village, as it used to be called. Why can't we just focus on America or this union? Why can't we focus on bringing jobs to this union instead of trying to bring people in and having them pay? Yeah, they got to pay a little bit more. But if these people are dropping $5 million on a gold card, it's obviously not something that they're too worried about. So I think this is going to go over like a lead balloon, despite the fact that Trump's trying to say that, oh, well, the 5 million is going to be invested in all these other kinds of things. Great. And then you're going to bring in 100, you're going to bring in how many H-1B visas to fill the jobs. And so it's one of these things that, yeah, he's trying to say that, paying down the debt and doing all these other kinds of things. And I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of this idea. I don't think, now, of course, your MAGA cheerleaders will say, look at what he's doing. He's helping invest in America and he's bringing money into the country and Trump is great and Trump can do no wrong and blah, 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 and all these other kinds of things. Me, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't want any immigration. I don't want this kind of immigration. I don't like it at all. This is Rick Cast. I am the aforementioned Rick. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell if you like what we're doing here, if you like the point of view we bring. And thank you for spending your time with me tonight on this 25th of February, 2025. All right, next story up. This one kind of broke right before we went to air yesterday. And I really, unless it's breaking news, and I know that term has been destroyed on Twitter, unless it just happened, like the Cybertruck at Trump Tower on the 1st when we covered it then, unless it's something that's absolutely vitally important that needs to be covered right at that moment. I like to let stories sit and then I'll give you my opinion on it if I feel like it's worthy later on, instead of actually just kind of chasing the news cycle like a lot of people try to do. So let's take a look at this story now. This has kind of been simmering for a day, and Representative Crenshaw says he wants to kill Tucker Carlson in a hot mic moment. Now, you're going to have to watch a video that I don't like, but it's the only one that actually censors out the curse. Everybody else just lets it go. I don't want to try and do that in case you have family members around or kids or anything like that. Try to keep the show as family friendly as possible. So this is a catch-up of what happened yesterday.
Carlson, Dan Crenshaw was caught on a hot mic saying this.
Have you ever met Tucker?
Hey!
Yeah, and that's it. I'm not going to let that guy play the rest of it. So he said I would blanking kill him, which is weird because, like, Dan Crenshaw had a lot of hype when he came in, right? Former military guy, this and that. He lost his eye, blah, 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 all this whole thing. And he was going to be another solid conservative out of the state of Texas. Except he isn't. And why would he go after somebody like Tucker? Well, I mean, you can just listen for yourself. Now, there is some cursing in this video. I apologize for that. But you only do so much.
Cannot be a congressman again. You just can't. It's just too insulting.
Why is it that Republican states tend to have the least sincere Republican? Dan Crenshaw, apparently still a member of Congress.
And the next time Dan Crenshaw stands up and says, but you don't understand the threat. Shut up, Dan Crenshaw. Just about had it with you.
Neocon Congressman Dan Crenshaw, the Nikki Haley of Texas.
The single most left-wing member of Congress I've ever met personally is a Republican from this area who has no interest in the United States whatsoever and does not even pretend. I'm not going to name names. Yeah, it's Dan Crenshaw, the most liberal, most left-wing person I've ever met.
And so they're easily bullshitted by the posturing jackasses in Washington.
That's why Dan Crenshaw has a job.
You, Dan Crenshaw, you're the one whose own children languished and died while you focused on the neighbor's kids. That person is an enemy of everything that you voted for.
So I guess maybe that's why Dan is not a huge fan of Tucker. Of course, everything that Tucker said in his statement is pretty much on the nose. Dan Crenshaw has been 100% a disappointment. And he's also he is a prime example of why conservatives should always be wary of a guy who says, I'm a vet, bro, you should vote for me. Now, for everybody that did serve, thank you for signing the piece of paper. I wasn't brave enough to do it. Thank you for making that commitment. I didn't do it. So you did that. But, working as Johnny B says on YouTube, he's a great account. He's a gun guy. He's a great follow. As Johnny B says, working for the government in your, 20s does not give you the right to use that as some kind of placard against us for the rest of your life. You chose to serve. You can't use that as a card to use on us. Well, you don't understand. I served. Okay, you did. Good. And if you actually talk to a lot of vets, they don't use that. The ones that, there's the vet bros who are like, I served, give me my 10% at Denny's and all these other kinds of things. And then there are the quiet vets. The quiet vets are the ones that have seen the real stuff, right? The quiet vets are the ones who have seen the deal and they don't really talk about it. Unless you get to know them and you're hanging around. Like when I used to hang around at the gun range when I worked there every day, it was all vets but me. And, once you get to know them, then they kind of just talk about stuff, but they're not going to come out and say, well, I served and I did this and blah, 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 puff their chest out. The ones that are quiet about it are the ones that, are really the ones you got to be, I don't want to say respectful for, because you have to at least give a little bit of a tip of the cap to everybody that signed the line. But, the ones that are quiet about it are the ones that you really need to listen to. Dan Crenshaw is a lot of bluster, and he's a lot of what's wrong with American politics. So why does this matter? The threat, which Crenshaw, by the way, it's hysterical. So people on X were like, hey, why did you threaten Tucker Carlson? And Dan Crenshaw apparently doesn't understand that the internet exists, that video exists, and that things are forever. He goes, I didn't say that to him. I didn't say anything. And people are like, here's the video, bro. Here's the video of you actually saying it. But his communications people are probably the worst in Congress. Carlson, who has called Crenshaw one of the dumbest, most liberal Republicans. Crenshaw has called Carlson a click chaser and an elitist, which is kind of funny because Crenshaw went to an Ivy League school. Crenshaw is as much of an elite. Crenshaw is a member of Congress. So Crenshaw to call anybody else an elitist is probably one of the biggest pieces of hypocritical literature or hypocritical statements I've ever heard. After an interview with conservative British channel, which is an oxymoron, GB News correspondent Steve Ingleton, where Crenshaw criticized Carlson's opposition to sending all aid to Ukraine because Dan Crenshaw wants to just send money everywhere. Egdon asked Crenshaw if you've ever met him. He's like, we've talked, but if I ever meet him, I'll blank and kill him. And, it's not great when you're a former special forces bro. Yeah, that's another thing there too. You're a former special forces bro. You have military training above the average person. Does that make you like Frank Castle and the Punisher? No, but obviously you have skills that the federal government paid for. And for you to walk around and have skin thinner than, discarded snake peeled skin is kind of pretty pathetic in that regard. So if you're supposed to be a tough special forces bro, you're supposed to be okay with people calling you out. You're supposed to be okay with people saying mean things about you. You're supposed to be a little tougher than Tucker Carlson getting under your skin. You know, you're supposed to be the guy that is immune to these things. But apparently, when you are a grifter, and I think we can all agree that Dan Crenshaw is a grifter. Dan Crenshaw was the guy. There's a video. I wish I remembered this because, you know, as I do this show, it's kind of a stream of conscious and I remember things mid thought. Anybody remember when Dan Crenshaw was running for re-election? He was at a town hall and some young child, I think it was a girl, asked him a question and he started like yelling at this little kid. And everybody else was thinking, bro, it's a child. Why are you trying to roll up on a kid? But he's as thin-skinned as it gets. And it's actually kind of funny because all Tucker Carlson's going to do now is he's just going to continue to go after him because you've shown thank you, Lou. Lou knows and Pepperidge Farm always remembers. But the last thing you want to do to somebody like Tucker, he is a professional S poster, but he's also a good journalist. You think Tucker's going to be scared that you're going to be that Crenshaw says he wants to blank and kill you? Tucker's going to go even harder on him. And there's enough special forces bros that love Tucker that don't like Dan that I think Dan should be careful with how he talks about, you know, messing people up that he doesn't like, especially since Dan is probably one of the least liked members of Congress. He's probably going to get, I know Tucker's going to pour every dollar he can find into the primary and try to get rid of Crenshaw in his reelection. But interesting to see how elitists, and Dan Crenshaw is an elitist, just cannot handle any tiny bit of pushback to the globalist ideas and the globalist agenda. This is Rickcast. I am Rick. Thank you for hanging out with me. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell to keep this show rolling. It helps promote the channel within the algorithm. Rumble, hit the like button. YouTube, hit the like button. Leave me a comment. If you're watching on the X machine, leave me a comment as well. If you're on Facebook, hit that like button on Facebook and let Mark Zuckerberg know people still watch on the platform. And of course, as always, good evening to my one person on Twitch. You are holding it down, and I appreciate it. I really do appreciate you watching on Twitch. All right, let's get to our third story. Nope, it's our second story of the day. I don't even know what story it is. Moving on. So, this is a sticky situation here. Boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy, this is a sticky situation. So you got Representative Anna Paulina Luna of former Calendar Girl fame calling out other person, Pam Bondi, for allegedly stonewalling the release of the Epstein list and the JFK files. Remember Glenn Beck? Then 10 days of cash being, it's going to get released. It's going to get released. I'm telling you, I promise you, it's going to get released. And then Pam Bondi on Friday said, Epstein client list is on my desk. I'm ready to release it. Nothing. We here at Rickcast, and when I say we, I mean myself and my amazing audience that interacts with me. We all knew when Chunky Glenn Beck made that statement that was probably not going to happen. Or if it is going to be redacted, I should have found one of those memes where it's just a blank piece of paper or it's all lined out. Do you really think? Now, I know Tim Cass and the guys at Tim Cass, like, we know Cash, he's going to release it. And I know a lot of other, like Glenn Beck, he's going to release it. I don't think that's going to happen. Now, if it does happen, I'll sit here and be like, hey, this just in, I was wrong again. Shocking footage at 11. But you're not going to get what you think you're going to get out of this. And I know people are like, oh, it's a trust thing. And they said they were going to do it day one and they were going to do this and they were going to do that. The amount of, if the Epstein list is even a fraction of what people have rumored it to be within the dark web and the corners of Twitter and the Q-tards and all these other people, if it's even a fraction of what these people are talking about, it's never coming out. And if it is coming out, it is not coming out. It is not going to be like, this is the names of the people who are on the Epstein list. Number 1, blah, 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 at his address. And he went to Epstein Island 500,000 times. Number 2, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, they're not going to do that. Now, of course, this gives rise to people on the left, our genius little Intellibros on the left that are like, they're not releasing it because Trump's name's on it. Whatever. Okay, sure. If you guys want to run with that, at least you get some running in, you bunch of fatties. But the fact is, something strange going on. Something strange is going on if you don't realize that it's Washington, D.C. And monkey's brains. Somebody going to get that from Clue. While a delicacy. I forgot the line. Washington, D.C. is going to Washington, D.C. Everybody in the chat is correct. It's going to be redacted. It's going to be blank pages. It's not getting released. I forget. Can you complete the quote for me? Because I know when he sits at the table, he goes, and monkey's brains, while a delicacy is something, something, something. That was part of the time in Clue when Tim Curry does one of the greatest performances in the history of cinema, when he retells the entire movie at 3 times speed by himself, which is why Clue is one of my top 10 favorite movies of all times. Yeah, you're not going to get what you think is going to happen. Everybody's just setting themselves up for failure. And it's not. I'm just kind of going over and over again, but let's see what this article has to say. This is from VNNVigilantNews.com. Oh, we've got an e-thought face-off. I'm sorry, it's mean for me to call them e-thoughts. Anyway, Representative Paulina Luna of Florida is demanding answers from Attorney General Pam Bondi for allegedly slow-walking the release of the long-awaited, including the infamous Jeffrey Epstein client list and records related to the assassination of JFK, RFK, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Here's a summary. The CIA killed all 3. Next. You know what I mean? Bondi confirmed last week during a Fox News interview that she's actively reviewing the Epstein-related documents along with other classified files on JFK and MLK. Remember when Representative Paulina came out and said, I'm going to be the chair of the releasing of the classified documents list, and we're going to review it all and give it to you. And everybody went, what do you mean review it? Just release it. Just don't review it. Just release it. You don't need to review it. You can just release it. And of course they said, no. We're not going to release it. We are going to review it and make sure that it is okay. Pam said it's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK, MLK. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies. How many times did she say review? Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times within the span of 1 paragraph, right? Right? I'm reviewing it. It's being reviewed. We're going to review it again. And then we're going to review it one more time. And then we're just going to review it to review it. Oh, okay. You're going to review it? Maybe. When asked whether she had uncovered any major scandals, Bondi remained cautious, responding, not yet. In a separate interview with quote unquote conservative host Benny Johnson, Bondi doubled down, teasing that there's more to come, but refusing to reveal details. Ben, that's the scary bad guy, is something Cash has talked a lot about, and you have it when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein and the people who are predators in this country. They've been given a pass, and a lot of Americans think that these guys have had to pass for a long time and still being protected right now. Where are we with the Jeffrey Epstein list, the documents? Cash has made a lot of public statements. Pam said I was briefed on that yesterday. I can't talk about that publicly, but President Trump has given a very strong directive, and that's going to be followed. A lot of documents. Guys, right? RFK will see it. Let me see that. Yep. CIA killed him like I thought. Okay. Back to getting rid of red dye number 5. And so it is what it is, man. The Epstein client list is such a terminally online thing. You know, Susie the soccer mom and Frank the football fan in Nebraska do not. I'm sorry, that's JFK's voice. What do you want? JFK Jr.'s voice. The guy's like 75. He can bench 175 on an incline. He's going to be fine with me, I make everybody else gets an impression. RFK doesn't. I don't give a pass for anybody. But the fact of the matter is, none of these things they don't matter. Now, people online are saying, you promised us that you were going to release the list. You need to release it now. Okay. They're going to release it. It's going to have it's all going to be blacked out except RFK was killed. MLK was killed. And he's dead. That's all you're going to read out of it. You're not going to get what you think you're going to. You're not getting the earth-shattering thing that aliens came down and blasted JFK's head off, or that Dr. Martin Luther King was some kind of secret agent for, MI6 or one of these explosive things. Because guess what, folks? The truth is not that interesting. It's not. Just like how aliens were cool until the federal government started talking about them. Everybody thought aliens were awesome, and the government was like, yeah, by the way, aliens are true. And then everybody went, next. I don't want to talk about this anymore. It's boring. It's the same thing. Everybody's getting hyped up for nothing. Nothing is going to happen. Stop working yourselves up into a frenzy about lists that do not, the Epstein client list, JFK files, they are not going to bring down the price of gas. They're not going to bring down the price of food. They're not going to combat inflation. They're not going to help people get jobs. Who gives a rip? They're not going to help getting rid of illegal immigrants. They're not going to do any of these things. But yet, Benny Johnson, Timcast, Alex Jones, whoever, all of your online personalities, name one. I missed 1,000 of them. The Quartering. All these guys who are much more successful than me, deservedly so, because they've been in the game a lot longer. So congrats to all of them. Y'all need content. I get it. That's what this is. It's a demand for more content. It's a demand for salacious headlines. Right, Brian? That's the most important thing. They're not going to lower beer prices. And so it's one of these things that people are getting hyped up about for no reason. You can, you're going to do it. And that's right. Lou is correct. Trump said in his first term he was going to release the JFK files. Womp womp. So it's one of these things that you can get mad about it, or you can just be like, who cares? Oh my gosh, Prince William was on the Epstein list. Hey, guess what? Prince William's going to have to deal with that when he gets before God with the 4 final things of death, judgment, heaven, and hell, right? Mendez is correct. They're going to pay for it. They will pay for it at judgment. You getting worked up about it doesn't mean anything. And that's what we talk about here on Rickcast. We're not going to chase these annoying things, or we're not going to be chasing after this stuff like it's the be all end all. It's not going to make your life any better. It's not going to make my life any better. It's going to make content creators more money because they're going to have treasure troves of things to go through, and people are going to go through them. And you know what? If they do release them, we'll cover it one day, because guess what? That's news. Hey, guess what? They released it. These guys are on it. Next, because it doesn't bother me. All right. This is Rickcast, where we kind of we don't take the same approach that a lot of other shows take. And that's why I appreciate everybody hanging out with me. You got to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell and take the link and share it on X or Facebook or Gab or wherever you share stuff. That's the only way the show's going to grow, because YouTube's not going to help us. Rumble's actually very helpful. We're making more noise on Rumble. And surprisingly on Parler, our clips do really well on Parler. It's weird. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for subscribing. Let's get to our next story. This one's actually kind of funny. It's actually kind of funny. So the iPhone has AI has a mind of its own, apparently, and AI thinks that Trump is a racist. Maybe it's the Steph Jones version. I'm sorry, Steph. I didn't mean to say that. That was mean. It was your senator dad who was involved in the JFK killing, according to somebody. Oh, you mean like Ted Cruz? She's talking about Ted Cruz. Remember in 2016 when Trump was like, Teddy, your dad killed JFK. I saw the file. He shot him right in the head. Then 3 weeks later, Ted Cruz is like, I think you're great, President Trump. Please keep me around. How'd that work for Ted? He's not anywhere. The ultimate justice would be if they put Teddy on the Supreme Court. That would be fantastic, because liberals' heads would blow up. I think Ted Cruz would make a good Supreme Court justice just because he would just make libs' heads blow up. Now, back to the story here from TMZ.com, because TMZ is where the hard news hits. iPhone's voice to text feature, which Rick Barrett uses all the time. So if you ever get a text message from me and half the words don't make sense, it's because I'm too lazy to type it out. Displays the word Trump when it hears the word racist. Racist! Apple's iPhone voice to text feature is in hot water, which is not great because the phone would break, with users doing a double take after noticing it sometimes swaps out the word racist for Trump. I don't know if Ted is like he's like he's a bird that flies south for the winter. He'll be back in a couple weeks in March. So that's when he'll be back. But if you don't believe me, here's Alex Jones uncovering the truth.
Racist. 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 Racist.
We just duplicated this on 3 phones. Other people are able to duplicate it. It may be what updates people have. Some people.
You gotta love Alex Jones. This is it. This is it right here. I can't believe it. It's the AI. The AI is adapted. It's learning. It's learning that Trump's a racist because he doesn't like the immigrants. I think we need to go after him right now. Buy the supplement.
People are not duplicating it. Sean, you did it on your phone.
Yep.
No joke. Subliminal programming. Absolutely disgusting.
Come on. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's subliminal programming. The iPhone is learning, and it's learning to hate you. So that's why I need to get rid of Apple products and buy the Freedom phone. Buy the Freedom phone from me, Alex Jones, and the supplement.
Well, at least Apple's moving back to the U.S., but this is just some programmers inside there doing that. But again, it's all AI garbage.
Come on, man. This is just kind of funny. Lou apparently tried this, and it didn't work on her phone. I didn't try it. Let's try it in real time, because we can try it just because. Let's see here. Let me open up a tab. Not like Homer Simpson. Let's see here. Racist. Mine doesn't even work. Mine's like, I'm not going to let you do it to me. Racist. Nope, it just said racist. It actually misspelled it first, so, there's that. Didn't work on mine either. So, listen, I kid, but the Alex Jones was right jar is actually pretty full. And give Alex Jones credit, he was out there for a long time. He is the king of all alt media. He is. He is the king of all alt media because he was doing this for a long time. And they dragged him through the mud, and he's still kicking. So crotchety, I make fun of Alex Jones, but I only make fun of him because he is the king. He is the king of the alt media. And so you got to give him credit because he does like 9-hour live streams and he screams and he rips his shirt off. He does have the best quotes, right? They're aliens, interdimensional demons. We got to fight them. We're going to fight forever. And of course, the infamous frog's gay and all this other kind of stuff, which he was right on with the frog's gay thing. But I'm sorry. I only do it because he's just Alex Jones, and you can't help but do it. But there you go. I mean, there's really nothing else to the story except that, Apple's voice to text feature is in hot water, blah, 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 blah. Apple's voice to text feature, it's just the same thing like 4 times. So apparently people did it. TMZ has reached out to Apple and Trump's reps for comment. No word back, but an Apple spokesman did tell Fox, we are aware of the issue with the speech recognition model that powers dictation, and we're rolling out a fix as soon as possible. Well, I guess they did it pretty quick because it doesn't do it on my phone. But then again, my phone struggles to make phone calls sometimes. So there is that. So that's it. That's just an update. If you hear people talking about, the iPhone was making Trump racist, it may have on some phones, but it's been fixed and it is now nothing. So that is what it is. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Rick Cast. Last story of the night. Let's get to it. So for the 5th year in a row, Kathleen Kennedy is planning to leave or exit LucsFilm. Now, there's been rumors for the past 3 or 4 years that she's leaving this year. but it seems like this time she's actually got one foot out the door. So from Variety, Star Wars boss Kathleen Kennedy planning to exit Lucasfilm at the end of 2025 after running. It's funny, we talked about Marvel. Did we talk about Marvel yesterday? Or 2 days ago, how Star Wars was the most recognizable intellectual property out there, and Kathleen Kennedy has done her best to not only drive it into the ground, she's driven it so far into the ground that it's going to turn into oil in about 4 years. Kathleen Kennedy, the longtime president of Lucasfilm, is expected to step down at the end of 2025. She intends to retire after her current contract ends, according to a source with knowledge of her plans. Once again, Kathleen Kennedy has not made this statement. It is just another, she's leaving. I'm telling you, end of 2025, she's leaving. What's the end of 2025? October, November, December? When? When? Details, people. A separate source close to Kennedy, however, dismissed the initial report by Puck as pure speculation. Kennedy joined Lucasfilm in 2020 as she co-chaired alongside Star Wars creator George Lucas. Shortly after, Lucas exited when they gave him $4 billion, which, by the way, I would jump ship as well. Kathleen Kennedy, she is a producer. That's a great question. She's been around forever. She was a longtime associate and a producer who worked with Steven Spielberg. She is a producer on the Indiana Jones movies, and she's worked with Spielberg for a long, long time. Now, she didn't have a lot of creative control or a lot of creative input into Indiana Jones and all these other properties that she's going to be given credit for in this article. And when she was given the full reins at Lucasfilm, she went 100% all DEI all the time. The future is female. The force is female. All these other kinds of things. That is, yeah. Well, actually, she killed 3 Bellator. Remember, they redid the Willow. They did a Willow series on Disney Plus, and that was such garbage that they actually took the Willow series off of Disney Plus. That's how bad it was. And Willow is an underrated movie. Just telling you. So she joined it, and blah, blah, blah. After he left, she is credited Variety, because Variety, Deadline, they're all just mouthpieces for the studios. So she's going to, they're going to soft land this as much as possible. She's credited with reviving the property by launching a sequel trilogy, which, if you actually run the numbers on them, they paid, what, $4 billion for Star Wars? They actually have not made their money back on it. They haven't made their money back on the Star Wars films because of the amount of money they've lost. They created this thing called Galaxy's Edge at one of the parks where they spent billions. They're taking this hotel in one of the Disney parks. It's called Star Wars Galaxy's Edge or Star Wars, whatever it is. They're turning it into office buildings. That's how badly it's done. In contrast to Marvel, they paid, I think, $4 billion for that, and that's made $21 billion. So they actually made their money on Marvel, where Star Wars, a much more well-known property, has actually been run so far into the ground, they don't know where to go with it. So The Force Awakens was okay. And then the critically acclaimed spinoff Rogue One, which everybody says is the quote-unquote best of the Disney Star Wars movies. That's like being the tallest midget in basketball. Kennedy also chartered a future of the franchise on streaming with a television series, The Mandalorian and Andor. Know what they're missing there is the much reviled Acolyte series, which was one of the most ridiculous. Disney paid $60 billion for Fox, but they paid $4 billion for Lucasfilm and $4 billion for Marvel back in like 2012. They didn't mention the Acolyte. They didn't mention the Book of Boba Fett. They didn't mention all of the other just absolute disasters that the Disney Plus streaming shows that were Star Wars have been. The Obi-Wan series, which they took arguably the most popular character from the prequel trilogy under Lucas, Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi, and they turned him into a guy who was like, I'm just so sad, and I don't like anything about my life, and I hate everything, and I'm just such a bad male. However, the future of the company behind Star Wars has been a source of speculation over the years. The Force Awakens remains the highest grossing film in domestic box office history with $936 million and $2 billion globally. But the triad of Skywalker-centric blockbusters, they're not Skywalker-centric, they're Daisy Ridley-centric. They're trying to claim that, but it's not. Capped off the trilogy in 2019 with the still impressive $1 billion, about half as much as The Force Awakens, The Rise of Skywalker. But the fact is, what they're doing is, we talked about this with Captain America Brave New World. When you make a movie, whatever your budget is, and we're going to use basic numbers here, you spend $50 million for a movie. Then the formula is a little weird. It's either you take the budget and you double it for advertising, or you use a quarter of it for advertising. So let's just say they used a quarter of it. You've made a movie for $50 million, then you spent $25 million or $20 million to market it, right? So you're $75 million in on a film. You're going to have to make twice as much as that. You're going to have to make $200 million to make a profit. And people say, well, you spent $75 million on it, Rick. Don't you have to make $76 million in order for it to be profitable? Yes. But the problem is, like we talked about with Brave New World, the films, when they come out, you have to give money to the distributors. Then you have to give money to the distribution companies. Then you have to give the money to the actors, to the producers, and whatever, back end deals they make. Like Tom Cruise is famous for getting percentage points on every movie he makes, meaning he gets a cut of whatever the final box office is. No matter if it's a loss or not, they still have to pay him contractually. And producers, if they put so much money in, they're like, hey, you got to give me percentage points on the back end. So I got to get paid before you call it a profit. So it's not just a one-to-one thing. It's not like if you build, one of these stupid fidget toys and you make it for like $5 and you got to sell it for $10 to make a profit. No, there's a lot more complicated things. And then don't even talk about China and China's distribution, because once a film goes to China, unless it makes $200 million in the Chinese box office, you're not getting any of that money back, because China, I believe, takes 90%. It takes the majority of whatever's made in that territory and it keeps it, and then it sprinkles it back. And China and then the US are your two biggest box office territories. And then you have Europe, and then you have South America and all these other little places. They don't make as much money because their populations aren't that big. So that's why when you're like, well, this movie made $932 million. Well, if it cost $200 million to make, and then you had to make all that back, they didn't make as much as the final box office would show to you. And that's the dirty little secret behind films. They'll say, well, this film was made for... Great example. We've been talking a lot about It Ends With Us with Blake Lively. That movie was made for $25 million. Let's say they spent $25 million in advertising. You're in for $50 million. The movie made $325 million. So that movie made a huge profit. And the problem is, when you make these billion-dollar films, is you got to have a lot of money put in order to make whatever. You got to make billion-dollar films, right? You got to spend $250 million until you actually get it. So that there is a lot of stuff. That's a great question, Steph. When I'm done with this topic, I'll end the show with that. But let me get through this. So they're saying, well, it made $932 million. Well, if it costs $250 to make and another $150 to produce, what do you win? You're in for almost $500 million. And then you take the percentage points. Disney probably made $200 million off of a $930 million, almost $1 billion film. So it's kind of crazy in that regard. Let's see. Earned a few years earlier, but they not be a big deal. But it came after the financial failure in 2018. Solo's A Star Wars Story, which became the first Star Wars movie to ever lose money in its theatrical run. At Lucas, Kennedy also oversaw the disastrous 2023 Indiana Jones and the Retirement Home of Destiny, the fifth and final film in the Harrison Ford-led series, which is so sad. I mean, my favorite Indiana Jones movie is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I love that film. That film is fantastic. For me, it's Last Crusade, Temple of Doom, not Temple of Doom, the first one. Temple of Doom is the second one. Is it? What's the first one? Is it Temple of Doom? And then, Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's Last Crusade, Raiders of the Lost Ark, then Temple of Doom. All very good films, but that's my order. Let me know what you think your order is in this comment section down below. Thank you, Bellator. Then Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, terrible. I mean, it's not a very good film. It was kind of just slapped together as a money grab. And then Dial of Destiny it did the classic thing for this 5 to 6 year run where they revitalized properties in order to humiliate the main character of them. They did it, and whatever you think of Mark Hamill, they absolutely decimated the character of Luke Skywalker in the last three in the Disney Star Wars. They decimated him, they made him look like a loser and all these other kinds of things, which people are going, it's Star Wars, man. You can't make Luke Skywalker a wuss. Now, of course, Mark Hamill is, so I mean, life imitates art in that regard. Anyway, Dial of Destiny generated $383 million against a $290 million budget. Now you can see the way that the financials work here. They made the movie supposedly. Now this is what they released. There were some people that said it cost $400 million, not $383. They try to hide those financials with tax credits, why they make them in places like England or Canada, because you get tax breaks and then they don't count that against the film. So they say it was officially 383 against a $290 million budget, and they lost $140 million. Those are all the official numbers. Star Wars has struggled to return to the big screen since Rise of Skywalker, though not for lack of trying. Over the years, LucsFilm has they announced so many projects that I think Rian Johnson, Squarehead Rian Johnson, Rian Johnson, whoever, the guy who made the Return of the Sith one. Oh, no, The Last Jedi. He supposedly has a trilogy that's supposed to be made. Other people are supposed to have ones, but James Mangold, Taika Waititi, Donald Glover, all these people are supposed to. So Lucasfilm has plans to, quote unquote, eventually reintroduce itself to movie theaters. There's a movie called The Mandalorian and Grogu, or whatever the Baby Yoda was. Continuation of that, and so forth. And so she will be studied in business classes that are not partisan on how to destroy one of the most profitable franchises in history. In history, she has destroyed it to such a point that they can't even release something because the feeling around it is so negative. There's such a bad taste in the mouths of fans that they don't want anything to do with this project or this franchise or this intellectual property or whatever you called it. All right, so Steph had a good question up here. Where is it? And I'll answer that. So we'll end the show here. How do I pick my stories? Let me be completely honest. I split it 50-50. There are stories that are trending, right? Google Trends. We want to try and find things that hit the algorithm so more people are interested in it. And that usually lines up with stories of the day. And then I try to contrast it with some stuff that I find very interesting. As you can tell, when I talk about films and things like that, that's something that interests me greatly. When we talk about different things, I try to find things in different areas. Because I've said before that I don't want this to be just a political show. I want to try and hit as many different corners to try and be as more well-rounded as possible. So the guidelines are what is trending. And my producer, Magdalene, helps me with this, which is why we had the Blake Lively stories for a while. She's like, Rick, do the Blake Lively story. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll try it, which actually was great because without her help, that story has blown up. So she helps me with pop culture stuff. I try to stay the political, technology, entertainment, sports sometimes if it comes up, because there's more than just the basic, oh, we could just talk about politics for 5 hours, or we could talk about conspiracy theories or any of these other kinds of things. We could, but I also find that really boring because as we've talked about on the show, if you talk about politics over and over and over again, it's just going to burn you out. It's going to wear you out. And I don't want to wear that out. And I don't, because I did that when I was, I used to have a radio show on this network called the Crusade Radio Network with Mike Church. I had to fill 3 hours every day. And a lot of it was political talk because that's what people were looking for. And, it's fine. And there's a huge appetite and there's a huge audience for political based content, but there's also audiences looking for entertainment or business stuff or culture stuff and just trying to be more well-rounded. So Steph, I hope that answered your question in that regard. And that's the guidelines that I use. Because unlike Joy Reid, I don't have 30 people working for me. I have me, then I have Magdalene helping me out on the sideline. She's helping me out on social media, and she's helping me out with a bunch of other stuff. So there's two. There's two people that work on this show. But yeah, that's how we roll here on Rickcast. And I thank you for hanging out with me tonight on Rickcast. Please do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. It's the only way the show's going to grow. If you're on Rumble, hit the like, leave me a comment, let me know what you're thinking. You guys on YouTube, you guys always do such a great job of letting me know what's going on on your minds, and you guys make the show so much better because when you interact with me, it helps the show continue to go that way. People on X, thank you for hanging out with me. People on Facebook, what's going on? My one Twitch user, salute to you because you're holding it down over there, and that's the case. But it is what it is, and I appreciate it. And that's the end of this show on the 25th of February, 2025. Thank you, guys. I will see you tomorrow. God bless. And until that day comes, free Dexter Taylor.